Good afternoon, and thank you all again for joining us in person and live online today. For the next 15 minutes, I'm delighted to have the opportunity to further introduce to you what it means to undertake sustainable or responsible investing and to be a signatory to the PRI, as we see this approach to investment increasingly moving to the mainstream. For those of you who may not be familiar with the PRI, we are an investor-led and UN-supported global initiative, established to help better understand the investment implications of environmental, social, and governance, or ESG issues, and to support our members or signatories in integrating these issues into investment and ownership decisions. Those signatories commit to implementing 6 aspirational principles for responsible investment, which assert the importance of a structured and formalized approach to the incorporation of ESG issues in those investment decision-making and stewardship activities. Our members joining as a way to demonstrate leadership, a commitment to responsible investment, to learn from best practice, contribute and collaborate as part of a global network of peers. It is these 6 principles that I will be focusing on in my presentation today. These principles which signatories work towards implementing across their investment portfolios over time as they progress in what we term their responsible investment journey. Before doing so, it is important, however, to emphasize that at the heart of what the PRI is doing and what is driving our work, the core of our mission is the belief that an economically efficient and sustainable global financial system is a necessity for long-term value creation, and that such a system will reward both long-term responsible investment as well as benefiting the environment and society as a whole. It is this last aspect that is increasingly moving to the forefront as scrutiny and questions arise as to the role of the financial system and the investment industry in meeting societal goals such as the UN SDGs and the Paris Agreement. Now, you may rightly ask why the PRI's 6 principles are important. The PRI is the world's largest and leading proponent of sustainable and responsible investment. Our membership, with signatories across asset owners, investment managers, and service providers, includes over 4,300 signatories, managing over US 120 trillion in assets under management, and from across more than 85 countries. Thus, the commitment and actions of our signatories in implementing these principles play a significant role in driving sustainability within investments and the wider financial system. I will now like to turn and touch on each of these principles. Firstly, and most importantly, Principle 1 requires the incorporation of ESG issues into investment analysis and decision-making processes. When investors are building a portfolio, ESG issues can be incorporated into their existing investment practices using a combination of 3 different approaches. This includes ESG integration, so the explicit and systematic inclusion of ESG issues into investment analysis and decision-making to better manage risks and improve returns. And this is typically done through 3 steps of investment research, security valuation, and portfolio construction. Secondly, we have screening. This is the application of filters to lists of potential investments to either rule companies in or out of contention. For example, based on an investor's preferences, values, or ethics. This could be so-called sin stocks, so exclusion of alcohol, tobacco, gambling, or firearms, and more recently, thermal coal production. Thirdly, we have thematic approaches. These seek to combine an attractive financial return with an intention to contribute to a specific sustainability-linked outcome. This could be social or community housing, education, healthcare, employment, and this also includes impact investing. All of this should be underpinned by a formalized and structured approach to incorporating sustainability issues into organizational policies and processes. This begins with a consideration of an investor's fiduciary obligations and determining the beneficiary preferences. It moves on to defining investment principles, which feed into an investment strategy, and lastly, the development of an investment policy. This should be underpinned by sound governance, and this policy plays a critical role in outlining an organization's expectations and aspirations to both internal and external stakeholders. Over time, we have seen the ability to undertake ESG incorporation develop across asset classes, with practices most recently developing within fixed income and hedge fund strategies. While investors may choose to prioritize specific asset classes for ESG incorporation, as they progress on their RI journey, the establishment of such best practices, whether it be in public market or private market investments, has meant that expectations on investors to implement RI across their entire investment portfolio continues to increase. And a formalized approach is equally important for externally managed assets as it is for internally managed assets. Here, the role of asset owners is crucial in ensuring that they consider an investor's approach to responsible investment as part of their manager selection, appointment, and monitoring processes, as well as expressly including responsible investment components within the development of investment mandates. Asset owners are becoming increasingly sophisticated in their approach here, which helps to raise their expectations of external managers, but also to help combat greenwashing amongst investors as well. The second principle here is a focus on undertaking active ownership or stewardship. The PRI defines this as the use of influence by institutional investors to maximize overall long-term value, including the value of common economic, social, and environmental assets on which returns and clients' and beneficiaries' interests depend. To highlight two commonly used practices, through proxy voting, investors can formally express approval or disapproval through voting on specific resolutions or directly proposing resolutions. It could be for a company to improve its disclosure of climate-related risks and information, or to develop a policy on modern slavery, or it may be on the election or re-election of board directors based on the progress they have made on sustainability-related concerns. Through engagement, investors discuss ESG issues directly with companies to improve their handling of, including disclosure, of such issues. Engagement can be done individually, collaboratively with other investors, or it can be delegated to investment managers and service providers to be done on your behalf. Investors can also look to engage with a variety of other stakeholders to help drive stewardship goals or to support the development and adoption of more supportive, sustainable finance policy. Active ownership is increasingly promoted and required via stewardship codes, with those in the UK and Japan being the most developed, and expectations around both exercising ownership rights but also having transparency around how these rights are being exercised is increasing, and that continues to increase this year and will do so in the years ahead. Now, one of the biggest barriers to responsible and sustainable investing has been access to quality and comparable ESG-related data to help facilitate ESG incorporation, and this is particularly true when investing in emerging markets. Stock exchanges, like the Hong Kong Exchange, play a crucial role in putting in place corporate sustainability reporting requirements for listed entities. And there are a number of different reporting frameworks which companies may be asked to report against. Most recently and specifically on climate change, we have seen strong support for climate-related disclosures aligned with the TCFD recommendations, and we can expect greater shows of support to come for this as we see COP proceeding in the weeks ahead. Investors can and should seek appropriate disclosure on ESG issues by the entities in which they invest. This ensures that companies see value in sustainability-related disclosure. It ensures that they take this seriously within their organization rather than as a box-ticking exercise. And it can help them to better understand investor needs and how such data is being utilized. Principle 4 encourages and requires signatories to further promote acceptance and implementation of the 6 principles and broader responsible investment within the industry, something which has helped to support much greater awareness and understanding of ESG issues, particularly across Asia in recent years, and encourage the greater adoption of sustainable and responsible investment practices. Alongside this, Principle 5 includes a commitment to work collaboratively to enhance the effectiveness of this implementation. These are both important for helping to foster a more supportive environment through which investors may undertake activities like collaborative engagement, such as Climate Action 100+, the world's largest collaborative engagement targeting over 160 of the world's most polluting companies. And also to encourage investors to work collaboratively with stakeholders such as regulators to help inform and support them in the development and implementation of sustainable finance policy. The PRI and our signatories exist as part of a much wider ecosystem of stakeholders and collaborative initiatives, all working towards sustainability within the financial system and the broader economy. And there are a growing range of opportunities to drive action on sustainability-related issues, to learn from your peers and to collaborate with them. Now, the last of the principles requires signatories to report annually to the PRI on their progress in working towards the 6 principles with a focus on investment processes and practices. This is crucial to ensure that we have transparency to the public and to the PRI as to how our members are fulfilling their commitments and this responsibility, to ensure accountability and to track and demonstrate progress over time. In recent years, the PRI has also introduced minimum requirements for signatories alongside mechanisms to recognize leadership, and is in the process of strengthening and updating our reporting framework, for example, requiring investors to disclose and report on their approach to climate risk management. But we should also welcome scrutiny from external stakeholders who are continually helping to drive transparency and combat greenwashing, whether it's by investors or corporates themselves. The likes of Share Action, WWF, and Global Witness have all undertaken invaluable research which put greater pressure on PRI signatories and helps to bring greater visibility to how they are meeting their commitments and acting in line with the policies they put in place. Now, there is no denying that responsible and sustainable investment is moving to the mainstream. PRI membership is often used as a proxy for this, and you can see rapid growth in recent years, expanding from 100 signatories when the PRI was founded to well over 4,300 signatories as of September this year. However, the mainstreaming of responsible investment has not seen, likewise, the full and desired benefits for society and the environment. There is growing acceptance that issues such as modern slavery, biodiversity loss, climate change, and inequitable social structures seriously threaten the long-term performance of economies, investors' portfolios, and the world in which beneficiaries live. Given this, expectations from beneficiaries, clients, governments, and regulators over how investors behave and should respond have changed, driven in part by an increased visibility and urgency around many of the SDGs and the need to support a low-carbon and just transition. We can only anticipate that the role of the financial sector and the investment industry will come further under the spotlight, and the pressure to walk the walk, not just talk the talk, will increase. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy the rest of this conference.
Thank you very much, Mr. James Robertson. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to our panel discussion session. And the panel will be talking about UNESCAP Infrastructure Financing and Public-Private Partnerships Network of Asia and the Pacific. The panel will also cover Infra PPP Net web portal and UNESCAP Network website introduction and launch. Now, please welcome our moderator for this session, Professor Whitman Hong, JP, Principal Liaison Officer of Hong Kong, the Shenzhen Qianhai Authority, to the stage, and he will be hosting the discussion for us. Joining the panel online, we have Ms. Beini Liu, Economic Affairs Specialist, Infrastructure Financing and Public-Private Partnerships Network of Asia and the Pacific, Trade, Investment and Innovation Division, UNESCAP. Mr. Pitaya Utaisang, Director of Public-Private Partnership Promotion Bureau, State Enterprise Policy Office, SEPO, Ministry of Finance, Thailand, and Mr. Piromsho Valisoda, expert on Tajikistan, PPP and Private Sector Development, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Tajikistan. Now over to you, Professor Whitman Hong.
Thank you. I'll first sit down first. This is my first experience of moderating a session with 0 on-site guests. Very well welcome. Originally, I have some questions, but I thought since this session, we want to talk about the infrastructure PPP Net web portal and the UNESCAP network website introduction and launch. Do we want to do it in the beginning or at the end, Mr. Liu?
Up to the program. I'm okay with either way.
Sorry, I can't hear you. It's at
Okay,
the end, right? Okay, if it's at the end, then let's start. I can see the two gentlemen, both are officials of your individual countries promoting or managing PPP. Maybe we can begin by each one of you to spend 5 minutes to introduce what kind of PPP projects have your country experienced in the past. What kind of problems or results or advantages, some of the experience sharing first. Maybe we start with Mr. Wu Tai-sang from Thailand.
All right, sure. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to join the session this afternoon. And today I'd like to tell you about the infrastructure financing in Thailand. And let me introduce myself once again. My name is Pitaya Utaisang. I'm currently a director of Thailand PPP unit, which is under State Enterprise Policy Office, or SEPO, Ministry of Finance. I have to admit that I'm quite new for PPP as well, since I'm just moved to this position about 6 months ago. But as a director of PPP unit of Thailand, I have to say that so far Thailand did a pretty good job in terms of introducing and promoting PPP projects within the country. And I personally think we have been showing our strong commitment to improve and raise our standard to the global level. During the past 6 years, there are more than 18 mega PPP projects got approved, which is around 846 billion baht, which is around 30 billion US dollars in monetary terms. And all these projects are now under their ways. Some are under construction, while some are already in operations. From these figures, I believe that PPP has become a much more important source of financing that will help the country both socially and economically. And I will elaborate more in my further presentation. My agenda for today will be as you asked, will be the overview of Thailand's infrastructure development under a very challenging circumstance, or in other words, under COVID-19 situation. And in the latter part, I will give you what is the preliminary idea, how we are going to deal with this challenge in the way that we hope it is a sensible way. Let me show you the slide, and you bear with me 1 minute. Here we go. Can you see the presentation here?
Yes, we can see it now.
All right. Okay, shall I start with the current situation in Thailand? In the short brief, under the pandemic situation like today, actually it has been lasting for about 2 years, we have to accept that economy in every country around the world has been affected severely. Thailand is no exception. The main engines to support countries' GDP are almost completely not functioning. Consumption within the country, investment, and export all are in very bad shape. The only engine that's still running, and it has to keep running, is government spending. The Thai government has been spending incredible amount of money to support the country socially and economically during the past 2 years. A considerable portion of our national budget, together with national debt, are mostly used for the critical and urgent purposes. For instance, COVID care, COVID recovery program, or even COVID subsidy to business and people. Clear evidence is that we just raised our public debt ceiling from the level of 60% of GDP to 70% of GDP in September. From what just mentioned, it is more than ever that PPP has become an important tool to finance infrastructure and to rebuild the country. This is why the Cabinet on May 18 this year asked for more PPP projects in wider sectors, both in the short term and long term. The said Cabinet resolution should be able to summarize the importance of PPP in helping the country, especially during the pandemic time. Even though we can think that COVID is just a temporary period of time, it comes and definitely it shall pass. However, SEPO and Ministry of Finance have an idea to take this crisis as an opportunity to step back and see the whole picture of infrastructure management in Thailand, whether it has any problems or is there any way to make it more efficient. And the next slide. What I'm showing you right now is a 5-year PPP delivery plan, also known as a PPP pipeline, which I believe my colleague used to present it to this forum in the previous years. This one is the latest one, updated in August. The pie chart on the left-hand side tells us that currently we have 67 PPP projects altogether, with a value of 996 billion baht. Among these 67 projects, 19 projects in yellow piece are categorized as high priority projects, which represent about 496 billion in baht term. We also have 7 projects, the green piece, which categorized as normal priority, and they have value around 148 million baht. And for the rest, the light blue piece, the 41 projects are PPP initiative group, which has a value about 352 billion baht. However, if we play around a little bit with this data, by categorizing it in sectors, the picture will look like the figure on the right-hand side. This bar chart shows us clearly the unbalanced PPP investment among sectors. We can see that 50 out of 67 projects are in transportation sectors, while we have very few PPP projects in sectors like energy and health, or even none in the area of education, for example. In terms of investment value, those 50 PPP projects in transportation has the combined value around 889 billion baht, or about 89% of the whole PPP investment in the pipeline, while the other 11% of investment value is spread out to the rest of industries. And this slide, to utilize this finding, we separate those 67 PPP projects by their functions, and then we map them with countries' 6 key strategies under the present National Strategy Plan. The 6 key strategies are shown on the right-hand side of the slide, which are the strategy for security, national competitiveness, human capital development, social cohesion and just society, eco-friendly development, and public sector rebalancing. After mapping the PPP projects in the pipeline with countries' 6 key strategy, we found that we have none that answer to national security and public sector rebalancing. We have only 2 projects on human capital development. We have 7 projects on social cohesion and for eco-friendly development each. But we have 51 projects that support countries' competitiveness. This fact worries us, and we propose the idea to deal with this potential unbalanced development. First, we propose the idea to Minister of Finance. Then we propose the idea to PPP subcommittee. Both are agreed in principle. Now we are in the process of proposing this idea to the PPP committee, which probably we will do in the next PPP committee meeting. This picture in this slide portrays the whole idea. We named it Thailand's Infrastructure Plan. The main idea is to gather all the infrastructure projects around the country. Then we scrutinize them, we prioritize them, and we will tell what source of funding is appropriate for them. It sounds very simple, but to make it happen, I would say it's a big job. In this slide, you can see that we separate the process into 3 stages. The first stage, the column with number 1 on the left, is to gather infrastructure projects around the country, which is the yellow box on the left. This sounds easy, but the fact is that there are many state agencies in the country that possess the list of investment projects under their legislative functions. For example, SEPO as a PPP unit, we have the list of PPP projects, while Public Debt Management Office, they have the list of projects that request for loans. And for the Budget Bureau, they have the list of projects that use government budget. Apart from these, we also have infrastructure projects that the owner use their own money to invest, and also some other infrastructure projects being built under the Special Economic Zone Law, the EEZ law, for instance. Therefore, the first challenge here is to find an agency that is not only responsible for, but also be able to gather all the projects from various agencies and to complete the yellow box. And the second stage, the column with number 2, is to prioritize infrastructure projects. Once we get the whole list of investment projects from column number 1, we will scrutinize the business case and prioritize the importance and necessity of those projects. For example, we have to see whether the project answers to the country's strategy or whether the project is in accordance with the national plan. Also, since we have the whole picture of project list, we can see if there is any investment that could be a redundancy, or is there any project that needs to bring out in order to strengthen country's goal or specific need. By doing this prioritization, we hope to be able to tell the sequencing of investment, or we can tell which project should go back, make some revision, and come back again in the proper time. In stage 3, once the selected project have come to the final stage, which is to assign the source of funding, we will take all of the relevant factors such as legal constraints, the project financial viability, and country's monetary and fiscal situation into consideration. By doing so, we hope that we will be able to tell both the appropriate source of funding for each project together with its priority. And this is what we would like to call country infrastructure plan in the orange box on the right-hand side. And for this slide, I would like to conclude what to expect if we can put the country's infrastructure plan in place. Firstly, we can prevent the redundant process among state agencies. Secondly, we can prioritize the balance the investment across sectors to serve country strategies. Thirdly, we can allocate the appropriate funding scheme to the particular project. And lastly, we can use PPP as a real tool to develop country, both socially and economically. Before I finish my presentation, I have to stress once again that what I'm presenting today is still an idea. It hasn't officially announced yet. There are still many things to work on, as everything is not ended within separate Ministry of Finance itself. In fact, the task rather has to step up as a national agenda. But today, I just want to share with you what we experienced and what we plan to do. So comments and recommendations are pretty much welcome. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's a bit longer than I expected, but you kind of answered my second question, which is the future plan. So that's okay. Let me go to Tajikistan, Mr. Valisoda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Whitman. Welcome to the conference. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be part of this discussion. I work as the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Tajikistan. I used to work as a commercial investment of Tajikistan for 7 years. I was involved in promoting private sector development, business planning, and private investment. Then my master's degree from Destination University in the University of Japan. I've been researching infrastructure financing and PPP in Tajikistan for the last 5 years. Infrastructure facilities have been in Tajikistan during the Soviet Union time. However, diminished over time. The country has begun rehabilitation of this infrastructure since the beginning of the south by attracting the grants for donor organizations, loans from international institutions, foreign debts, and foreign direct investment. For the past 8 years, more than $2 billion of public investment were effort for infrastructure development in the country. At the moment, there are 82 state investment projects costing $3.7 billion that are implemented in energy, transport, agriculture, education, and other infrastructure. There is still high need for investment in infrastructure development in the country. According to the Rural Development Bank estimation, the country's central levy needs to invest up to $32 billion in infrastructure development by 2026. For attracting private investment in the infrastructure projects, the government of Pakistan adopted the legislation and institutional the law and concession law were adopted. So far, 11 projects have been implemented in concession in Pakistan. The studying the projects 1.2 billion. There is huge potential for attracting investment for infrastructure sectors in Uzbekistan, including in hydro, solar, transport, tourism, mining, and agricultural sector. The general capacity of the country's hydropower, Uzbekistan, is 527 billion kilowatt hour, of which Uzbekistan is only 5%. There is a huge potential for private investment in hydropower. The solar power. There is a huge untapped solar power potential in Uzbekistan. The country has more than 300 sunny days a year. As the transport sector, Uzbekistan has a convenient geographic location for connecting Eastern and Southern Asia. Some have a great potential to become a transport hub in the region. More than 50 projects for connecting transport sector, 1,200 kilometer roads. The government of Uzbekistan is proposing around 20 large infrastructure projects, of course, in $2 billion. And these proposals Uzbekistan is making progress in digitalization of the economy as well. The concept of digital economy and operation and various digital projects are already being introduced in. For example, in the city of Uzbekistan, electronic payment for public transport will already use electronic city cards. Commercial banks are promoting digitalization policies that offer new products and services. The plans are to create an IT park and data center in Italy. The administration of different cities can now implement smart city projects that use further planning, different cities, technology, and other infrastructure. The other innovative projects being implemented in Uzbekistan right now are a billing system for electricity consumers and the Ansar Digital Project, which is a regional project for the development. Majority of Uzbekistan population are young people and the young based in healthy and the young the first artificial intelligence laboratory or something based in the practice. They have planned to transport the external original machine learning and they realizing innovative ideas of the young people that are raising the private and public business incubators in the country. Attracting private investors stating that the country provides nearly something for economies and the statement guarantees that through the separation of profits and guarantee against changing social policies and access to the country's sector. The reform right now that the rolled out on tax system and typically taking legislation taking place in Uzbekistan. Tax rates are going to be increased and administration will be simplified and more incentive will be provided to private partners, fiscal and PPP and institutional projects. According to the World report, Uzbekistan is in 6th place in the world for use of green energy. 99.5% of electricity consumed in Uzbekistan. The country possesses high position in international opening for infrastructure development, sustainable development, and education and Uzbekistan is the most vulnerable to climate change. 96% of its territory, therefore, huge investments are needed for constructing black civil infrastructure. Therefore, users time development partnership to participate in the project community. Thank you for your attention. Having me.
Okay, thank you. Now let's switch to Ms. Liu. I think we just obviously heard about some of the experience and the planning of these from a country level. Now from the UNESCAP level, can you share with us, first of all, what are the initiatives including this partnership network? And are you also introducing things such as best practices or standard operating procedures, things like that? And are they in any case, similar to what Mr. Wu Taixiang just showed, kind of this kind of decision tree? Can you share? Please, Ms. Liu.
We do have a presentation to show, so I'm sharing my screen right now. Let me know if you can see it. Good afternoon, everyone. Warm greeting from United Nations UNESCAP. It's my pleasure to speak at the Sustainable Investing and ESG Conference. My name is Benny Liu. Today, on behalf of UNESCAP, I'm presenting the Infrastructure Financing and the Public-Private Partnership Network. The network started in 2018. It's one of the flagship projects of UNESCAP, aimed to support member states to develop sustainable and resilient infrastructure and build back better in the post-COVID era. So just give you a bit of overall of UNESCAP. We are the Secretariat of Regional Commission. We cover 52 countries, including US, France, and the other exceptions that are now in the region. But other than that, we cover 49 countries in Asia Pacific region itself. The objective of this network are assisting developing infrastructure regulatory frameworks, implement sustainable and resilient infrastructure projects, and showcase demonstrate projects. Second is disclose infrastructure project pipeline and framework in member states to facilitate transaction matchmaking. Third is exchange best practice and foster capacity building and develop of successful pilot projects. These are precisely the areas that we're working on with our members. The network basically aims to be the bridge between Asia-Pacific countries and global investors. Besides capacity building, we also set up a web portal, which is an online information platform where we've been consolidating all the information together and support infrastructure projects with private sector engagement. So I will go into that in more detail later. For sustainable development goals, the network contribute to all 17 SDGs, either directly or indirectly, especially Goal 9, Industry, Innovation and Infrastructure, and Goal 17, Partner for the Goals. Currently, we have 52 member states in the network, not just from Asia and the Pacific region, but also from Europe, Africa, and North America. We are glad to see the network is growing every year with many governments' strong support. Besides country members, the network also attracts over 60 development partners, such as international development banks, research institute, academia, but more importantly, there are more than 60 companies from the private sectors also join us to make their contribution to develop green infrastructure in the region. Timeline-wise, as I mentioned, we started this network back in 2008, August in Guiyang, China. And at that meeting, we also facilitated the MOU signing between Tajikistan and China. In 2019, the second network meeting in Manila, Philippines in August, where we invited private sector, and we also had a pilot demonstrate projects. And following by the third meeting in Ningbo in September, we facilitated the signing of 3 MOUs in the region. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we had to convert our meeting to virtual format. And the first virtual meeting we had is the 4th network meeting together with Kazakhstan PPP Center. And we introduced the Infra PVP Net web portal to our members. Because our network was condensed from physical meeting to virtual meeting, which means we had to cut off a lot of critical aspects of a meeting that our member value, such as the in-person networking or in-depth discussion. So to compensate, we launched our first thematic workshop, which held in December last year. More recently this year, we are working on technical assistance with government of India and Central Asian countries on providing PVP training to strengthen their PVP and infrastructure financing capacity. Moreover, the network also had a second and third thematic workshop on a topic of preparing and assessing bankable infrastructure project in different sectors. As well as the fifth meeting, collaborating with our close partner, China PVP Center and Asian Development Bank, ADB. Looking ahead this year, we will have a sixth network meeting very soon, co-hosting with Korea Development Institute. The meeting will also be serving as an investment fair where country can pitch their bankable PVP project to international investors. So I would also like to take this opportunity to encourage private sector colleagues here to join us at the sixth meeting on 9th of December. As I mentioned, we launched the web portal Infra PVP Net. The main objective of this web portal are to disclose infrastructure project pipeline and the regulatory framework to our member state and facilitate infrastructure project transaction matchmaking, also disseminate international infrastructure financing knowledge product. Just to give you a better idea, I will show you the website. Let me know if you can see it. So this is the homepage of the Infra PVP Net. It contains 4 main modules: policy and case study, international knowledge sharing, project pipeline, and private sectors. So the most important module of this website is the project list, project pipeline. So far we received 28 projects from our member state, and we welcome you and encourage you to look at it. If any project that you're interested in, please contact us. We'll love to bridge you with the countries to see if there's any potential to collaborate. And for case study and policies, so those 2 modules introduce member states' PVP environments and share their experience and the lessons to the region. The next one will be international knowledge. So this module, mainly managed by us, we aim to disseminate global PVP experience and the latest knowledge product in the region to benefit everyone who are interested to learn more about PVP and infrastructure financing. For news, we also have encourage a member state to upload their meeting information to the web portal to share with others. And event, we have all the previous network event here that you can take a look. You can learn more detail when you click it. So as our information we have. To compensate, to complement our web portal, we also recently developed our project page on the UNESCAP website. So this page mainly consolidate official information. So we have all the member states here, and we also have events, future events. For example, the 6th meeting that you can register right now. And I have useful links. For example, our web portal also have a e-learning series that was developed previously. Also, the value for money toolkit. For knowledge product, so in 2019, we launched this infrastructure financing for sustainable development in Asia Pacific book, which is one of our very important outcome. So it's a very comprehensive book that if you're interested, please click and check. Yes, and let me go back to my presentation. Sorry. So for the web portal, as I said, I will launch in October 2020, and now I have 28 infrastructure projects across 12 sectors, and the investment value of uploaded project reached over $13.9 billion US. So again, feel free to register online. We're inviting all of you to have a look to see what's available on our website. And yes, so now the introduction and the update of the network that we have done, and where we're moving forward next. And happy to discuss further if you are interested to see how we can collaborate together. And thank you very much. Happy to answer any question or comment you may have. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Liu. I think that's a good, initiative, obviously. But I still have questions. I mean, when we obviously this one you're talking about voluntarily countries putting their projects up, and then you have collected a lot of knowledge and about maybe potentially some best practices as well. I have done some small personal research previously, where the issues of what we call the transnational PPP is usually where the real issues are. In this particular case, because of the regional role, or in fact a global role of a UNESCAP, do you have any, I would say best practice or advices for, how to ensure, and also to the investors? Obviously, you have already attracted some 60 private sector members, right? So, how do you actually have some publicized best practices in terms of things like transnational PPP? What are the things to watch? Because I was quickly look at the website just now, I saw there's some documents about risk distribution and things like that. Is that a individual policy document, or is it something published by you?
I think that we collect from other international organizations as a knowledge product to disseminate to our members. Yes.
Okay. So, but in terms of observation and real practices, how do you see these things, put into action, and have they really helped, ensuring success or preventing failure?
So for us, we organize a network meeting, also a thematic workshop. We hope to have an in-depth discussion with the members, also private sectors. If they have a question, we are the platform for them to discuss, to ask questions. So we'll have also experts in our network, like consulting firm and other research institute. We hope to provide this platform, this network, to have everyone together to discuss and to solve the problems. Yes.
Thank you. My next question will be to Mr. Uthai-sang from Thailand. I remember your PowerPoint talks about one of the key drivers is really the budget constraint of the government, which is why you're switching to PPP as one of the fund source. Now, it seems to me that you have not mentioned other reasons. So is that the only decision, the only time when, because of debt ratio or because of some fiscal policy, there's a budget constraint, therefore you have to ask private participation? Or will there be cases where there are other reasons, for PPP?
Okay, thank you for the question. Of course, the budget constraint is one of the main reasons, but we also have the other reasons, such as the expertise from the private sector, and also the time that the private sector spend on a particular project is much faster, and also probably the efficiency is also much higher. But what I'm just talk to the panel is that at the moment the PPP projects in Thailand, more than half, 50 projects of 67, they are in transportation sector. That means we have really small room for the rest of the project, for the projects such as education, healthcare, and just society, or something like that. Now that's why we have to step back and we try to balance the type of PPP in various industries to make the countries develop more in a more balancing ways. That's what I'm trying to present.
Yes, I can understand that, but also I can obviously, I think we all understand why the reason that infrastructure, especially roads and railways, comes first, because that helps to elevate the basic economic development. Now, another question I will just maybe throw to both Uthai-san and Mr. Valisoda is something, because I'm staying here now in Hong Kong, is the name China. Okay, China has involved itself, not necessarily the government, but even the private sectors, or in particular case, their SOEs, have been involved in various PPP projects across the Belt and Road countries. What is your experience with this Chinese-related PPP? And then are there any areas that you will give some suggestions for future collaboration in a more positive way? Maybe we'll start with Mr. Valis.
I'll go first.
Yeah. Okay, please.
Okay, I'll go first. I have to admit that for the recent years that we try to use the PPP more extensively, most private sector that join the business the activity with the state mostly are the investor, the local investor. But those local investors usually have some partners from the other countries. So if we are talking that, if you ask whether we have any constraint or we have a limitation that the private sector from other countries cannot do the PPP with the Thai state agencies, we don't have such limitation. But I think that it's always difficult for the first time, because we have to look at the other relevant laws, such as the alien law and the others regulatory bodies restrictions as well. So in the future, I think we need to work together in order to make the first case of the direct PPP from the other countries. We don't have limitation, but we have to introduce it for the first time, which is very difficult for the first time. And once we have started, I think there will be more and more coming.
Okay, thank you. What about you, Mr. Valisoda?
Thank you, Mr.
Can you move a little bit closer to your mic? I think it's really getting very hot. Yeah.
Great. Now, can you hear?
Yes,
well?
much better.
Okay, thank you for the question. Really good. We, as a part of the country of One Belt, One Road initiative of China. We are cooperating very well. We have several projects in energy, in transport sectors being implemented with funding from AIIB fund, and they're quite huge projects. And as I have mentioned, there is huge potential for implementing infrastructure projects in hydro, in transport, and other sectors. And I think there is a need, the development partners and other funds to be involved, to participate in PPP projects in Tajikistan. And I think it's important to set up, establish a special fund for financing, funding PPP projects. This, of course, with the participation of government of Tajikistan and other development partners.
Okay, thank you. Maybe now I can switch back to Ms. Liu. I just look at your, obviously you have, government members, and then you have the private sector members. Can you tell me, in terms of the private sector, what will be the major stream? Are they financial investors? Are they like infrastructure developers who, want to get the project, get involved, or others?
So as I said, this is a network, it's a platform. So we do have an investor, financing investor, also a consulting firm who provide technical support to countries. So we have various private sector entities in the platform. And for project, we hope to matchmaking project in Asian Pacific. So now that's also one of the main purpose of web portal. So I hope to get a project and everyone can look at it. International investor would develop a consulting firm to look at it, and if they're interested, we can make them together to help country, because like in many countries they have the project but they don't have the suitable appropriate investor in a country. So that's the objective of this network.
Yes, but in your observation, obviously, can you tell us, what is the best fit? I know it's a big question, but in terms of PPP in the private sector, is it better to have like, a financial investor or a, construction industry or infrastructure company involved? In terms of the government side, the public side, is it better to deal with, for example, a sovereign country, or is it better to deal with at a local, like city or county level? In terms of other source financing, is it always helpful to get this kind of international partners you just mentioned? AIB, World Bank, this kind of. What is the best model?
Given every country has their own situation, also it's the policy are different, so it's really hard to say what is the best. So that's why we also want to tailor our assistance to country to provide the best strategy for them instead of just a one-fit-all model.
So you mean you actually will provide advices to the actual countries?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Then maybe, I'll ask the countries then, have you ever used their services?
I would like to add.
Yeah, maybe Mr. Uchai-san, do you think, for example, your country will use this kind of advices from UNESCAP?
Oh, yes. It's very interesting. If you can remember the decision trees that I made earlier in the third column is that it is the stage that we have to allocate the proper source of funding for particular project. And I said that we need to find the factors that play some roles to assign the appropriate source of fund. And I think at this point, the experience or the connection that the UNESCAP has could help us at this point. I think we need some assistance in this point.
Okay, time's running short. Maybe I will give the last time slot to the two countries because obviously we have an international audience of this conference. So can you each in 30 seconds summarize why the investment community should go to your country to engage in a PPP project? 30 seconds of marketing. Thailand first again.
All right, can I have the question again? Sorry.
The question is, can you in 30 seconds summarize why the international investment community should go to Thailand and engage in a PPP with your country?
Because we have plenty of opportunity. We have a lot of projects, especially infrastructure development, and only local investor. We cannot, support all the investment values both in terms of the money and also in terms of the knowledge. So we still need some assistance and some expertise from the international investor.
Okay, thank you. What about Mr. Valisoda?
Yeah, thank you. Really, Tajikistan is a country of opportunity. Its potential for as I mentioned, in hydro, in solar, in transport sectors is huge. And moreover, the legislation of Tajikistan provides a huge amount of incentive for foreign investors. And then Tajikistan is one of the most vulnerable in terms of climate change. And there is and Tajikistan contribution is in reducing the climate change impact is huge. And that's why I think the investors and the development partners should focus and allocate much funding to Tajikistan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the two gentlemen and one lady. Once again, let's join our hands to thank our distinguished panels, and also thanks to the WGO to give me this experience of, moderating a virtual conference on site. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much once again to Professor Whitman Hong and our panelists here joining us online. Thank you very much for an insightful sharing.
When the Paris conference was on, China, I think literally the day before, given approval of some 400 power plants fired by coal. I sympathize with them. They got a lot of coal. They've got more coal than anybody else. When you wipe out coal, you have problems. In England, we stopped coal. We stopped coal mining. We stopped coal production. And we now have a massive growing problem with energy supplies, energy resources in the UK. Everybody's in a panic. There's not enough of this. There's not enough oil. Not enough energy, electricity, blah, blah, blah. That is the problem when you just throw something out of the window without actually having the resources to replace it. 40% of your coal in the UK, 40% of energy in the UK was coal. We wiped out coal and we're replacing it with wind. We haven't arrived there. Unreliable wind. So yes, we have to focus on these renewables. Yes, we've been doing it for a few hundred years. By the way, we're not the first people to think that the sea might create energy. It does, but unfortunately, it sometimes goes calm. And we're not the first people by any means. It's been thought of 300 years ago of using wind. The Dutch have got every painting of Van Gogh has got a windmill on it. Where are those windmills today? What are they doing? Sorry, not doing the job that we want them to do unless we build, as I said earlier, millions more. And that's going to take time. That's going to take a lot of energy because of the steel required for those windmills and so on. This all sounds a little bit, probably a little bit negative, probably a little bit depressing. But my fund, we are going to get involved in this up to our eyeballs, and we are going to find ways forward to create new forms of energy. Technology comes in, and energy storage, which is critical. As you can imagine, when a dam, all the water goes over and drives the turbines, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. What happens if the water stops or slows up and so on? Do you want to store that water? You've got to use pumps to pump the water up again, etc., etc., etc. All very difficult. But we are going to get there. I think that's probably enough for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Simon Murray, for the presentation. Please give a big round of applause again for the very insightful sharing. Thank you very much. Now for the next session, we're going to welcome Mr. David Wong, Chief Executive Officer, NXT Smart Technology, to share with us on smart technology and IoT solutions for built environment. Please welcome Mr. David Wong.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, both virtually and physically. My name is David Wong, Chief Executive Officer of NXT Smart Technology. I'm very excited to be here today, as I've learned a lot from all the previous insightful discussions and sharings on sustainable investment in green economy, as well as outlook on smart city development. The topic I'm going to share with all of you today is on smart technology and IoT solutions for built environment. This is closely linked and connected to all the discussions we have been going through today, and I'm going to focus on sharing from a perspective of an IoT-based and artificial intelligence-enabled PropTech solution provider on who we are and what we do, and based on our experience and interaction with our customers, what we see the current trend is, and what we think how the industry of smart technology for space will likely unfold in this part of the world in the coming years. So, is this slide on going to be shown? So, who we are a PropTech IoT business. We're headquartered in Shenzhen and Hong Kong. We have, thank you. We have branches in Shanghai and Beijing as well. We have 120 people, consist of mainly IoT engineers, AI scientists, data analysts, as well as system integrators who have established long-term relationship with current and potential customers and stakeholders in PropTech and property industry in the PRC. We have over 10 years of PropTech operating experience in China, and we are one of the pioneers in the PRC PropTech industry. Our clients base consists of mainly top 50 property developers, mainly in Greater China region, property operators, shopping malls, hotel chains, hospitals, and property managers apparently, and also large-scale infrastructure projects. So to make it simple, our PropTech business is basically a property management business. We are providing property management services covering both back-end and front-end solutions. The key difference between us and conventional property management companies is that we are operating a technology-based property management business. And I would want to elaborate a little more, because I think this is important, the difference between back-end and front-end. When I say back-end, it really means facility management covering a full spectrum of the MEP system, which includes the entire power generation system, the HVAC system, which includes the heating, the aircon, cooler, chiller, and ventilation systems, plumbing system, water system, firefighting system, elevator system, lighting system, solutions that focus on energy saving and carbon emissions, as well as overall control of property management risk. Front end means overall ambience monitoring, space management, and deep learning of user behavior and pattern. Solutions that focus on close-up user experience. It's more human-focused solution. But because of our theme today, I'm going to focus more on sharing with you all the back-end solutions. So what are key components of our business? There are three components for our IoT business to work. Basically, one, hardware, two, software, and three, data computing platform. Hardware is the many different types of sensors and devices we're used to collect data, detect events and change in environment and behaviors. Software are programs and logarithms. These are the logic behind the scene that control, send, and receive instructions for the sensors and devices. And data computing platform is a place to store data, to analyze data, and to conduct deep learning of data to create artificial intelligence from these data. So I call the integration of hardware, software, and the data computing platform, the IoT solutions we are providing in the market. So what's the value and objective of the business? We basically use technology to quantify the overall situation, the environment, and the circumstances of a piece of property, and turn that into measurable performance indicators and useful information. On the screen, this is on a slide. This is the output, an example of a custom-made 24/7 real-time display and dashboard of one of our property developed per clients in China, with multiple properties located across the country. We capture a large amount of raw data throughout the day, every day, within the space of property into useful information to property owners. This helps property owners to manage their properties much more efficiently by consolidating the information on a single platform. As you can see, there are levels of real-time energy utilization of each and every of your property. You can see the condition of the facilities, the conditions of your systems, whether they are working or not working properly, level of carbon emissions, and you can see many other parameters and relevant information that can assist you to better manage the assets. And management can also receive real-time alerts on potential risk and issues. Management can also send real-time orders to specific locations to address issues or potential risk. This is just a quick slide to highlight the challenges that a lot of property management and properties are facing now. Still very labor intensive. A lot of regular human error has been identified, mostly because of human error or oversight or simply human laziness. Some of the risk is just cannot be identified by human flesh, and just a lot of data or conditions or circumstances can't be measured. So this slide, this is a digitalized model. We have 24/7 sensors doing the inspection. We eliminate human error because the sensors never lies. It works 24 hours over 7 days. And a lot of hidden problems, hidden corners can now be identified, and data can now be measurable, so you can, based on your data, and continue to improve your asset management. And I want to give you some of our IoT application examples. Energy saving is a big value we create for our customers. For mega-sized properties such as airports, retail chain stores, shopping malls, office complexes, they have huge aircon systems at the back end. Aircon has been the biggest cost item for most properties. Heating system in colder northern areas during winters. So the way we do it, we use different sensors to monitor the aircon systems. There are sensors that include, hearing the sound of the aircon system, detecting the vibration, detecting the smell, detecting temperature and efficiency of energy consumption, as well as level of gas emissions. We capture the combination of these sensors and then compare to a large database of aircon system data that we have been collecting over the years from clients. So we are able to know right away that, for example, the aircon system is beyond repair. So you better go and replace it with a new one. Otherwise, you will be just wasting a lot of energy. Or 2, the aircon system needs some repair or upgrade. Just do that. And we will use sensors to monitor the performances of the repaired aircon system for you every day, 24/7, to make sure it runs efficiently. Or 3, the aircon system is actually fine. You just need to optimize the efficiency. For example, if it's a shopping mall, we also place sensors at the front end, detecting the learning customer traffic and ambience and the behavior. And then we can match this data with the data of the aircon conditions. So we'll be able to learn whether it's weekdays or weekends, the traffic situation, and then adjust the level of aircon supply accordingly. And that way, you save energy, you save cost, and you're making your customers comfortable and happy. Our projects in China usually save in a region of at least 10% to 35% power every year. And the second thing is labor optimization is another key value creation of our solutions. Traditional property management is labor intensive, and because a lot of things can now be done by sensors, IoT solutions can substantially reduce physical, and as a result, many of our customers can reduce property management labor costs by at least 30 to 50%. Immediately after the installation. In addition to energy saving and labor optimization, smart inspection solution also eliminates a lot of human error in property inspections. Sometimes this may be caused by human laziness, I just mentioned, or just oversight. And our sensors never sleep. They run 24/7, so data are uploaded to our platform every 5 to 10 seconds. These data are very accurate usually, and because data do not lie. And the multi-dimensional sensing is also one of the key functions that leads to our capability to identify hidden problems, property issues, and risks, otherwise not be able to identify it by human flesh. Our system do not only detect but also predict potential risks such as fire risk or water leakage risk. And also multi-sensing when combined with artificial intelligence and data analytics also helps us with monitoring the overall ambience and deep learning of user behavior and pattern to help upgrade user experience. We use proprietary sensors. Usually there are no privacy issues. We're developing a lot of smart tech solutions in, for example, in toilets, in shopping malls, in hotels, and as well as elderly services. And I just want to highlight that one of the advantage and competitive advantage on this is we kind of use sensors that are smaller in size but it carries a lot of functions. And this goes without altering the design or structure of the premises. But with the multiple sensing, including, say, temperature, humidity, CO2, lighting, noise, movements, or the air quality, PM 1.0, 2.5, 10.0, ammonia, etc., we combine all these parameters, and we're able to tell on a daily basis the ambience conditions of a toilet. So that will allow you to better allocate your toilet management staff, better allocate the consumables, and also detect unusual behavior in the toilets. In certain circumstances, because we do not have a privacy issues. We don't use cameras, we don't have CCTVs, we don't have face recognition, but we can have a very high confidence level to know whether a person is doing a big release or a small release in a toilet, and how much time you're spending on such release. Don't underestimate these data, because such information is so important for toilet management. Yeah, that's the toilet. I would want to go to some case studies. I want to go back to case studies that are more related to the theme we are talking about. For this case, this is a Phoenix International Media Center that's based in Beijing. It's a huge structure with a GFA of 65,000 square meters. Very interesting structure, architecture, the shape, a lot of glasses out of construction, which is attracting a lot of sunlight. That's trapping a lot of heat within the construction. So despite high level of aircon has been turned on most of the time, temperature remained at 40 degrees during the daytime. It's very hot inside the building. So this customer, they use automation of the aircon on and off on the right timing based on a daily data calculation and taking into consideration other parameters, including climate, weather on the outside, and number of visitors on a daily basis. And also we predict the number of visitors on a daily basis to automate the turning on and off of the ventilation and aircon to optimize the use of energy. And as a result, the temperature has decreased from 40 to 24, but at the same time, energy consumption was reduced by 30%. We have other cases. This is the Shanghai Hongqiao transportation hub. This includes the Hongqiao Airport as well as the high-speed railway. Huge, there's even a big area with 230,000 square meters. This one, at the back-end facility management, we installed 100,000 sensors and devices. That is a challenging job because think about it, you have 100,000 sensors, but they have to maintain connectivity of each and every sensor, collecting data from each of them every 5 seconds. You have a huge amount of data every day. But the data is very useful. We turn those information into we turn those data into useful information, and based on the IoT monitoring, on the facility management, the overall structure is able to save 10% of energy. That's a lot because the energy cost is huge. It's huge, and that's the first fully load dynamic energy management that has ever been adopted in China. And this is another case. Aeon style stores. These are retail department stores in China. This is a case that we, without touching the existing BMS, the building management systems, we managed to collect data around the entire property, installing various sensors and devices, and formulating the right IoT strategy to save energy and labor. This one we were able to save by reduced energy by 28%. Another one, Shenzhen Union Square. Also, we, without interrupting the existing BMS systems, we installed IoT solutions to capture data of all back-end facilities, allowing systems to communicate among themselves. And this is a smart inspection solution. So, as you can see in the next slide, based on labor, you spend almost 2 hours for every inspection. But based on sensors, we are able to reduce the inspection frequency from every 2 hours to every 24 hours, and inspection staff are reduced from 10 to 2. Huge reduction of labor, but at the same time increasing the inspection quality. This is the IoT and AI-based solution I mentioned about using artificial intelligence to drive user experience, but I'm not going to go over that too much in details. So the big picture, I think we are all facing serious issues from climate change and resources pressure. The climate change and energy agenda is one of the most significant problems that this generation will have to tackle, in my opinion. The Chinese government has been very serious and have been keeping pace with regulatory change, setting policies, and law enforcement in addressing these issues. We know that China is aiming to hit peak carbon emissions before 2030, or carbon neutrality by 2060. There are several planned actions to achieve these goals. One of the key measures is the digitalization of property management. One of the key policies to that is a red letterhead document number 10 that was released by the central government back in December last year, a very important article highlighting the requirement for the overall upgrade of property management in China. The key message is the requirement of the digitalization of property management across the country through the use of PropTech IoT solutions. Sorry, I didn't have a chance to translate that into English, but I can give you a summary. Basically, the government is requesting property stakeholders to use technology, including IoT, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, 5G, to quantify the overall circumstances and environment of a piece of property, capturing useful data that is measurable in order to minimize wastage of resources, of saving energy, optimizing labor, and minimizing property management risk, as well as enhancing overall user experience, and ultimately upgrading property management to have the capability of both preventive maintenance and predictive maintenance. So there will be a mega trend of the transformation of traditional property management to digitalized property management, and I think it's just beginning. It is becoming not something you want to do or wish to have. It is becoming a requirement, and I believe many property stakeholders, including developers, operators, managers, and investors, will need data to survive going forward. What we in China can see is, under the dual carbon directives, policies require our property clients to establish energy statistical management system, set energy saving targets, and follow the ESG philosophy. We see government and relevant departments have been actively responding to random checks on carbon emission indicators in various industries. So just to conclude, climate change and the energy agenda are pressing issues. IoT and artificial intelligence-based PropTech solutions is definitely a big trend in the next 15 to 20 years, especially in Greater China. I believe the transformation from conventional to digitalized property management is going to reshape and change the way we live, change the way we work, we operate and manage our space around us. There are plenty of environmental challenges for us human beings to solve. NXT offers part of the solutions, but it is required. It still requires a lot of stakeholders, partners, and investors to work together closely to bring real and great improvements to our world, making life more equitable and planet's scarce resources better allocated and utilized. Let's hope that smart innovation technology can help to create a better world for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. David Wong, for sharing so many innovative solutions and actual cases with us. Thank you so much. Please be seated. Next up, we're going to invite Dr. Bruce Zhang, Director, Urban Sustainability of Arup and Partners, to come on stage and share with us on the topic Climate Risk Financial Disclosure, TCFD, and Climate Science Modeling. Please join me and welcome Dr. Bruce Zhang.
Happy to join this great meetings to meet a lot of friends, some smart mind and also close minds together, both here and online, and to share particularly today's topic on climate risk financial disclosure, TCFD, and some science modeling that what we're now doing. Perhaps not many people here understand the key pain points that are facing by our companies today. So I would like to focus here and then from here to see what we can do better to support the industry. Now, just a quick review of maybe some of you don't understand or heard about the name of Arup. We are an engineering consultancy firm across the globe, and many people know that we are doing engineering on infrastructure and on buildings, but apart from engineering design, we are also working on consultancy. We lately got an award on ESG, Technical Advisor of the Year, by IJ Global. So we are doing from both strategic advisory level to engineering implementation level. Now go back to today's key topic. I'm sure that in this morning we have a lot from government officials, stock exchange, SFC share. Today is the pressing lead of a framework to request a listed company to report the climate and carbon disclosure properly. And following the TCFD framework, and as all of you know, by 2025, the listed company needs to disclose following the TCFD requirement. But the problem is, well, most of the company, when they know, they need to report this TCFD requirement, the problem is how they're going to report under this framework. And there are a lot of details, actually. I won't go through in every part, but I'd like to highlight the key pain points that we are now are facing, especially those middle-tier companies. Even the top-tier companies, when they are looking in this sort of framework, we need to consider both physical risk, transition risk, and then we need to translate the risk into financial terms. To them, I think it's a lot of challenges. Not to mention about, some companies, they have risk section. They now need to face, not traditional or conventional risk, but they're moving on to climate risk. Now, when we look into the details of the requirements of TCFD, there are 4 pillars from governance, strategy, risk management, and metrics and targets. On governance, risk management, I think it's relatively better because usually the top tier, the big corporate, they have the in-house support, sustainability, risk, or financial team. They can easily handle the governance and management as long as the company top-down policy bless these kind of works. The key issues actually are on the second and fourth pillar, the strategy and metrics and targets. I highlight some key points. On the strategy, the second column, we need to address the short, mid, long term, the risk, opportunities, and also the key issues that we are now facing for each company. Well, not many companies, they have the capability and resources to do a comprehensive review of the risk, in particular climate risk. So secondly, when we need to look into the strategy, they are requested to report the impact of climate risk as well as different climate scenarios. So to them, this is sort of a new thing that they need to at least understand what are they and how do they translate it to layman term to a senior management, and how do they report to the public and their investors. Now, moving on to the metrics and targets, they need to quantify the works they are now doing on both carbon and climate. So they need to have some numbers, transferable, understandable transparency in terms of numbers. So these are these are all challenges for these companies, not to mention middle tier or some SME. Now, so in a nutshell, the knowledge of extreme climate and also climate projections, as well as quantification of climate impact and association with financial terms, holistic plan for climate risk management plan, all of them are the challenge that we are facing. And actually, in response to these requests, we are trying to support companies and our partners to get response to all these sort of challenging issues. So on climate risk assessment and TCFD, we'd like to share a little bit what we are now doing in response to those challenges I just mentioned. 3 pillars that we are now doing, and holistically, on climate hazard assessment, this is sort of the first fundamental things that we need to understand. Everybody knows climate is changing, everybody knows temperature is rising, but about the climate science to underpin the works that we are doing on the impact assessment, i.e. the second column, the impact assessment underpinned by climate science. I think this is sort of the association of both climate, physical impact, transition impact, as well as finally translate to financial impact. So these 3 pillars depends on the time, the resources of each company, and the level of details they would like to further find out and dig into. So I think these are the 3 pillars that we need to address. And I'd like to quickly go through with you some examples to let you further grasp what actually they are. Now, climate modeling, as I mentioned, the fundamental prerequisite, preconditions, right, for all the works that we are now doing. Sure that you know about AR6, right, IPCC, the climate model, global climate model. The point I would like to mention here is a global climate model. Basically, it's very coarse data, right? Even if you read the report talking about 300 kilometers by kilometers, so it's covered more than 2 Hong Kong's sizes. So if you talk about site-specific or district-level climate projection, they can't tell you the answer. So that's why if we look into particular areas in Hong Kong, or other places in Southeast Asia, those listed companies have a lot of portfolio, the assets across East Asia, across the globe. They need to know something better, something in more detail. So if you need to look into it, well, like in London, our partner, in also Deutsche Bahn, they're asking, well, it would perhaps be better to have expert support in understanding the risk from these very heavy rainfalls, talking about one-day rainfall a 1-year rainfall in 1 day. This kind of weather uncertainty and climate extreme that we need to downscale to what we call district or site-specific level from global model. Now, this is essential. This is essential because we need to base on some scientific understanding and also the probability behind the climate to underpin our works, as well as make rational financial judgment. This is sort of a cost-benefits analysis, whether we can absorb or cope with the risk, or we need to further invest in balancing the risk. So, for example, now we are doing or understand, or at least, to do the assessment for companies, we need to understand as is condition. So that is the baseline condition. But however, we need to further understand what if. Now here you see, say for example, on the left-hand side is the typhoon track of Hato and Mangwood, right? The devastating tropical typhoon and cyclone hitting Hong Kong, but not directly hitting Hong Kong. Off track a little bit. It's still very, very serious. But if you take a look at the right-hand side, basically is the scenario that we simulate. What if Hato and Mangwood directly hit Hong Kong? So these are the questions we need to ask. That's why I'm referring to you extreme climate conditions together with the potential hypothetical climate hazard that would come in the coming years. So this is something that we need to explore and underpin our work. Some case study, and we are now actually supporting the Hong Kong government to understand the super typhoon, as I mentioned, the hypothetical typhoon track possibly hit Hong Kong in the years to come, and then the probability of all the potential or possible probable climate scenarios in the coming years. These information are essential for us to support our client to further assess their physical properties and also associate risk. Now let's move on to the impact assessment. So we may understand the climate, we can base on it to assess what are the impact to the physical assets, the facilities, the infrastructure that we are now operating. Can't go into very detail, but conceptually we need to understand at least what a lot of assets are managed by our government, by our clients, but actually when we are jump a little bit. So here is actually, say for example, the situation in Hong Kong, that we are actually helping the government to screen and also filter what are the critical assets and facilities in Hong Kong, ranging from building, from water infrastructure to highway. So a lot of companies, they need to first of all understand at enterprise level what are the risks, where are the risks, and what are the pain points that they need to deal with. So, all right, so here, actually, we need to at least have a register for the key infrastructure in order to understand which year and then what are the key hotspots for corresponding risks in the coming years. Now, given the time, I won't go into detail, but just let you know the concept that we need to grasp for each properties the physical risks with respect to different climate hazards, for example, flooding, strong wind, and water stress and extreme temperature. Now here is sort of a risk map to map all different risks in different time frames for different properties. Well, just an example that the red part basically represents the areas or the properties with high risk. So not only physical risk, of course, we also need to map the transition risk, given the latest policy and how would it, say for example, the carbon policy, renewable energy policy, how would it impact our operation and also the design and also the planning. All right, let's move on. Now, when we understand the impact, the damage, the vulnerability of each individual asset and facilities, we need to translate into financial terms. So we've built, based on our projects, we've built quite a lot of data to associate the loss to physical loss to financial, in financial terms. So basically, for example, if we have certain level of flooding under different climate scenario, we can associate at component level what would be the damages as you see here. So we can link up the damage with the financial loss, and because of our multinational projects across different cities and different sectors clients, so we have the data library to facilitate us to do this analysis. So here is the platform that we support our client at portfolio level to show the financial losses and also the business interruption, sort of a real-time illustration of climate risk. Because of the data that we accumulate, that they can quickly assess and dynamically and track the progress of their assets. So finally, we'd like to quickly share with you, because relatively speaking, the TCFD and associated requirements are a new thing, and a lot of companies are listed. Listed companies, they're asking for support, and how do they do the TCFD? So we are glad to join hands with a World Green Organization to launch a platform called Asian Corporate Coalition for Climate Change Resilience Platform, and together with us and also PwC to basically to form a club, right, to support the companies, especially in this region, to help them on three things. On your right-hand side, basically, is on scientific understanding, as I repeatedly stress on the importance of scientific understanding, and of course, swapping ideas, bombarding each other, so on connection, on mingling, and more importantly, on benchmarking and promotion recognition. Now, benchmarking is another important thing, because in Hong Kong, there are quite a lot of exemplars being done that they can help the industry to understand how we can do better. and by exemplar, and also give an example to inform our regulators how, as a whole, listed companies under Hong Kong Stock Exchange market as a whole, how we can, export our experiences to other places and demonstrate how we can do better in TCFD reporting. So this is the purpose of forming this coalition, and I'm glad that we can, together with WGO and as well as the experts in this industry, now we are inviting company members across Asia from now. Recruitment and also membership starts formally next year, Jan. So with that, I hope you're with me so far. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bruce Zhang. Please remain on stage. So please welcome on stage our moderator for the next session, Dr. Christian Hübner, Director Regional Project Energy Security and Climate Change Asia Pacific RECAP, Konrad Adenauer Stiftung e.V., to come on stage. Please welcome. Next, we would like to invite our panelists for the next session, Professor Johnny Chan, Emeritus Professor, City University of Hong Kong. Please welcome. Also, we have Mr. Cyrus Zhang, Partner, ESG Services, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Mr. Victor Kwong, General Manager, Corporate Sustainability, the Hong Kong and China Gas Company Limited. We'll first have a photo together. May I invite all of our guests, also our moderator, to stand at the center of the stage. We'll first have a photo together. We'll first be having a photo together. Thank you very much. So please smile for the camera, and we'll have a photo first. Just a warm reminder and a note for our guests here. Due to social distancing, we can only have 4 guests here on stage later. So our moderator will be moderating off stage. All right, a few more photos. Thank you very much. And now I would like to invite our panelists to be seated on stage and our moderator to be seated off stage and to moderate the session for us. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for the kind introduction, and many thanks as well to the organizer of this amazing conference and this extremely important topic. And as well, of course, a warm welcome to the panelists to this panel on climate risk and business resilience. I think the presentation before by Dr. Bruce Zhang was a very, very good start for this discussion here, as it provides a lot of information which are very relevant for this discussion here. And I would like to pick up as well one of the first slides by Dr. Bruce Zhang, which has been circulating about the physical climate risk which we are facing here. And therefore, I'm really glad that we have Professor Johnny Chan here, a distinguished expert on this topic, who might provide us with some more insight on this topic of the physical risk of climate change. And here's my question. So why is climate change a risk, and what are the major physical risks for the next, maybe let's pick up 20 years, if you can make it that precise. Do we have another microphone for the podium? I think it's coming.
Yes, thank you for the question. So obviously, why is climate a risk? That's a very important question. Now, we know that the climate is always changing, whether there is any human influences. But the problem is that because of the human activities that actually have changed the climate a lot more than what you would expect from natural variability. So the Earth goes through 4 billion years, and so therefore there will be ups and downs in terms of temperature, in terms of rainfall and everything. But what's been happening in the last century is that because of the Industrial Revolution, that we have seen human activities causing the climate to change a lot more than what you would expect from natural variations. So because of that, the impacts from the climate change will be more than what you would expect from natural cycles. Now, more importantly, in the East Asia region where we are, the important thing is that East Asia is particularly prone to these climate hazards. And you know that in Asia, more than half of the world's populations reside. So, and moreover, the climate hazards that we experience every year would include typhoons, heavy rain, drought, and to a lesser extent, heavy snow, but more importantly on the heat waves. And so all these will have very big impacts on the livelihood of people living in East Asia. And these types of impacts will actually going to increase in the future years because of the human activities causing climate change to go beyond that of the natural cycle. So that's why we need to really think about the climate risk in East Asia in terms of typhoons, which can cause very strong winds, and we know that the typhoons will be increasing in frequency, so therefore we expect to have even more damage from strong winds, more damage from flooding due to the storm surge as well as heavy rain. And then of course, because of global warming, you're actually going to expect more heavy rain in general. And also in East Asia, there's a very important point, is that East Asia has the most number of densely populated cities and what we call megacity and megacity clusters. And research has shown that these megacity clusters actually will cause even heavier rain, the higher frequency of heavy rain. So therefore, you can expect more heavy rain, not only due from typhoons, but also just because of global warming and because of urbanization. And then, of course, global warming would then lead to heat waves. And we have seen, for example, in Hong Kong in 2020, the number of hot days, very hot days, that means temperatures over 33 degrees, and the number of hot nights with temperatures greater than 28 degrees. These two numbers are unprecedentedly high last year. And this is not only unique in Hong Kong. Everywhere in East Asia, you see similar things. So all these, therefore, tell us that if we don't do anything, or what they call business as usual, then you will face the consequence that all these impacts will then be even greater, and of course the consequences will be a lot more loss of livelihood and a lot loss of properties and so on. So that's why we need to really today address these issues of climate risk.
Thank you. That was, I think, very important to mention this for everybody again. In front of all this risk, which you highlighted here a bit, might be much more important to think more about what cities can actually do to prepare, to adapt to all these developments. So I'm very glad we already heard Dr. Bruce Wong Chong before. But again, I'd like to give the floor to you and maybe give us some answer on the question, how can cities improve their climate resilience and corresponding business developments in this context? Please.
Well, I think there are two key areas. One is from public sector, the infrastructure investment from the government. They need to show the determination to understand climate change and how it impacts their public facilities and structure and the asset to protect life. And actually, they need to have the flexibility of including how the mechanism, how private sector, they come into play on investment. So that's why today green financing, sustainable financing, green bond, green loan, I think is the key to demonstrate the greenness and also the resilience of corresponding projects. And some mega projects or some strategic project needs to be planned ahead. I recorded the other day we talked about decarbonization, we talked about resilience. Do we need to have a mega structure, a seawall, to protect the southern water of Hong Kong because of typhoon actually coming from the southeast. We have, we were better to be protected by a lot of outskirt island, but we already, together with the government think, do we need a seawall to protect Victoria Harbour in order to, do one thing, to protect everything in one go. Now, this is sort of what I mean, the megastructure. Another megastructure we are talking about is decarbonization. So where do we put our carbon? Are we going to, capture all this, carbon in the ground? Now, where are they? Where should they be put? Now, these are the infrastructure and the planning project, the engineering project we need to plan ahead. And I think now, because of the technology improvement, because of, the carbon trading, also as well, also the financing. I think here we need to, pay attention to both resilience and the carbon projects that the government should drive and set up the mechanism for the private sector to follow.
Okay, thank you. You already bring up the point of decarbonization, something we are talking currently a lot all around the world, especially 1 week before the Global Climate Change Conference, which will be happening. Mr. Victor Kwong, who is General Manager, Corporate Sustainability of the Hong Kong and China Gas Company Limited, thank you for being here. Maybe you can help us a bit with one question here in this context of decarbonization. How can a transition of the energy sector in terms of decarbonization look like from your personal perspective and experience?
Yeah. So first, thank you for the invitation. And I would like to echo one point is about the climate change issue. So, well, when you remember a few months ago in July, in mainland China, in Zhengzhou, well, there's a flooding disaster. Many people died there because of the flooding issue. And actually, in that month, when you look around the world, like New York, like in Guangzhou, even in London, there are serious flooding of the tube, of the MTR tube, etc. And last year, we will still remember in California, they have one of the largest utility that is called PG&E. They are going to bankrupt. It's because of they are not taking enough action on climate change issue. So I think back to your question is, well, for Hong Kong and China Gas, we work in Hong Kong. Well, most of our operation is in Hong Kong and in mainland China. And we have about 40 million customers in this particular region. So in Hong Kong, we have a target that is 2050. We have the carbon neutral. And actually, about 2 weeks ago, the government have outlined a carbon action plan to outline the action for Hong Kong. We will take our path toward carbon neutral. And also in mainland China, they have the target in 2060. So for Hong Kong and China Gas, we work according to these two particular targets. So when we're talking about the carbon decarbonization, actually, well, we can refer to the IEA, International Energy Agency. What they are talking about is in 2050, about 70% of the energy will come from electricity, renewable, like solar, wind, etc. And about 20% will come from hydrogen, and about 10% will come from bioenergy. So based on this particular regard, actually for Hong Kong and China Gas, we're working on bioenergy. We have a plant in mainland China that we produce from oil waste, palm oil residue, etc., to convert to what we call the advanced biodiesel. That can, well, actually replace the use of diesel and reduce the emission by 88%. And further on this particular project, we are also trying to produce what we call sustainable aviation fuel to replace the traditional aviation fuel in this regard. And then in mainland China, there's a lot of agricultural waste. So we turn this waste into energy. Another project that we are working on is food waste. There's a lot of food waste in mainland China. We convert we have two facilities in mainland China to convert the food waste to biogas. And then another is domestic waste. So we have what we call a waste-to-energy facility to convert the domestic waste into energy. So apart from that, well, of course, we're talking about is solar. So in mainland China, we are trying to build a few gigawatt of solar panel of the rooftop, and then we can send the electricity to our customer, etc. And then, apart from that, we have some project is on hydrogen. Well, say early this year, we still remember Texas in U.S., they have a series windstorm that there is a power outage, etc. It's because they don't have the energy storage. So hydrogen is very good for this kind of application, especially for heavy-duty one, and then, well, just like bus, trucks, etc. It's not so good for the electrification. It's good for hydrogen. So our company, we are studying some possible application of hydrogen in Hong Kong.
Thank you. Very, very good answer and explanation. Then I would like to welcome Mr. Cyrus Cheong as well on the panel, partner from PricewaterhouseCoopers, who might help us a bit to jump a bit more into the topic, which is a bit as well the core of the whole conference here. The question to you is, what is the role of the financial sector in climate risk management, and where are we currently in terms of ESG disclosure management? A lot of discussion and public attention is a bit directing into this question, so I do this a bit about from my own work. We monitor a bit these developments, and the last year my feeling was a bit, there was an attention, but a bit slow maybe, but now I think it is exploding because something is happening here. Maybe you can give some insight to this to us.
Yes, sure. Thank you very much for the question. I think that everyone know about the seriousness of the climate risk, especially in the recent 1 to 2 years, because Professor Johnny, Victor, and Bush, they just mentioned that there are actually a lot of different global warming, sea level increase, etc., happening all over the world. And definitely Hong Kong, China are also impact on this as well. And I would say in the financial sector, it plays really a very important role in enhancing the climate risk assessment. The reason is because actually the financial sector, the bank or the investor, actually they are doing a lot of assessment on their investee, on their portfolio investment. And they have to understand what are the strategy on ESG, climate risk of those investees. So this actually is enhancing the focus and also the ESG information disclosure of those listed companies or those corporate. Just to share that actually when I talked to a blue chip companies in Hong Kong, they actually told me that when they are doing the investor presentation nowadays, the first question from the investor is not on the financial information, financial performance. They are asking the company, what is your ESG strategy? What is your climate risk measurements? This is become a very top priority question in the investor sector and also the financial sector. And apart from that, on the ESG disclosure, stock exchange actually start to require those listed company to disclose those ESG information from 2016 and enhancing the disclosure requirement in this year as well, which is a very good move, and this is very important to Hong Kong and mainland China as well. And I would say that for ESG disclosure, there are actually a lot of different movements, changes globally, internationally as well. There are different reporting framework nowadays globally, but the chance is actually they are trying to work together, forming some alignments, forming some coherent disclosure. That means that actually they want to have a better comparison of the performance of different companies in the same industry. Because nowadays the ESG information actually is quite in the different styles or the information may not that easy to compare for companies and companies. So I would say in the future there should be more and more standard, more and more illustrative that will be set out in the industry sector. And therefore, as an investor or as the financial institution stakeholder, they would easier to compare and manage or to look after the ESG performance of the companies. So that is what I want to share. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to come back to something we started with Professor Shan at the beginning, a bit the presentation before this panel by Dr. Bruce Chong. The question how important data from climate modeling are becoming for the financial sector, for planning, developing business resilience, structuring decarbonization. And here's something maybe, Professor Chan, I really would like to have a bit your impression. You're working a long time as an expert on this topic. How do you perceive this development and the quality of data from climate modeling? Where is it going? Are we very accurate now? Do we have very precise data from this climate modeling so that we can use it really for financial management, ESG disclosure meant?
Obviously, data will be very important in giving accurate projections of what's going on. So we have just seen the release of the AR6 report from IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And they have provided a lot of model data for the projection to the future and under different climate scenarios. So there are lots of data, but the problem is these climate projections are, as Bruce mentioned in his talk, is that they are really relatively coarse. And if you want to look at what happens, as Cyrus was saying about, okay, well, you want to look at the ESG performance or TCFD of some assets, then you can't use that data from the IPCC. So what you need to do is then what Bruce was saying is about downscaling, and that's very important to provide the requisite data for you to make a better projection of what might happen. Now, of course, every projection has uncertainties. You can't, it's not like, in fact, every measurement will have uncertainties. But climate projections, because they are from climate models, each of which will have some uncertainties, some assumptions, and so on. But nevertheless, you can then look at the different types of models and try to see, first of all, which of these models are actually doing a good job in simulating the current climate. And then based on that, then you can do a downscaling and then try to go to a much finer scale, horizontal scale, and then you can project what might be happening. So data are very critical to giving you a good projection. And I think now with the tools that we have, we are able to produce more data and in finer temporal and spatial resolution so that you can have a much better assessment of what might happen in the future.
Thank you. Back to Mr. Victor Kwong, decarbonization again. You explained very well where this is going, but if you mirror a bit the question of the challenges of decarbonization to the financial markets, where do you see here decarbonization and financial markets? Where are here the biggest challenges from your perspective?
So thanks for your question. And actually last year for Tangas, we conduct a TCFD on our business operation. I think it's a very good exercise for our colleagues to understand our business opportunity. I just mentioned a lot of our carbon reduction projects, etc. This is our opportunity. And so I'm not going to elaborate more on this particular side. And other is the business risk. of course, I mentioned there's a lot of risk, especially for from the government. Say, for example, in Hong Kong, we have a 2050 and in meantime 2060. A lot of this is a government policy, and it will affect on our business operation. So we need to balance opportunity and the risk, etc. And then we have prepared work with the transitional pathway in the future, especially for our organization. I think it's a good, if we are not so well prepared, it will be just like, as I mentioned, the PG&E case, that we're going to have a lot of trouble. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Bruce Chong again, urban sustainability, preparing to threat of climate change, and what could the contribution of a sustainable city. So where do you see in overall city planning are the biggest business opportunity in terms of decarbonization of a city?
Obviously, I think technological improvement, stimulus of different development, like another speaker talked about IoT, talking about communications, talking about 5G, 6G, and applications of 5G, 6G, and also the low power wide area network. So all these things actually being triggered by climate and also decarbonization.
Okay. Mr. Cyrus Cheung, again to the question of ESG disclosure management. Maybe you can give us a bit an outlook. Where do you see this is going from your work you're doing on this sector? So we have this task force which are doing a lot of important work. It's becoming mandatory in the future. So, but what next? What do you think?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think just like what Victor just shared, actually we are moving to a more focus on the climate risk and opportunities assessment. And when we talk to other companies, actually we always said that doing this ESG, doing this climate risk assessment is not just for the company to spend some cost to meet the compliance requirement, but that is also to help the company to develop some new business opportunities as well. Because if you don't understand that what is the climate will impact to your business, you are very difficult to develop a new business opportunities to continue the growth as well. So I would say, of course, this requires certain technical knowledge to adopt this assessment is quite complicated as well. So as just what Bruce just shared earlier, it's a journey and it requires a education process to educate the company and also the public investor to understand what are the wide climate risk and opportunities approach that they could adopt. And I would say that globally, not only in Hong Kong, China, but in other key countries, they are also going to this climate risk opportunities assessment direction as well.
Thank you. Mr. Cyrus Cheung, Mr. Victor Kwong, Dr. Bruce Chong, Professor Johnny Chan, I would like to thank you for being here, sharing your time and your valuable insight into this topic. And I give it back to the moderator of the conference.
Thank you once again to our panelists, and thank you very much. Please be seated. Also, once again, special thanks to Dr. Hübner for moderating the session for us. Thank you for such insightful sharing and discussion.